I remember the first time she locked me in the closet. I was 7. The darkness swallowed me whole, leaving me in a suffocating void. I could hear her muffled voice through the door, laughing with a strange man. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing in the confined space. That's when I saw it. A shadow, darker than the pitch black surrounding me. It moved slowly, almost gliding across the floor. I was terrified. The shadow seemed to sense my fear and paused, hovering near the closet door. Then, it spoke, its voice a soft whisper, almost comforting. "Don't be afraid," it said. "I'm here with you. I know what it feels like to be treated this way." Those words eased my panic, even though I didn't understand how a shadow could talk. From that moment on, every time my mother locked me in the closet, the shadow would appear. It became my only friend, my only source of comfort. Reflecting back, my mother's neglect was evident. She was consumed by her addiction, chasing the next high with a relentless desperation. I'd hear her arguing with strange men, promising things I didn't fully understand back then. The smell of cheap perfume and cigarettes always lingered in our small apartment. Whenever these men came over, she would shove me into the closet without a second thought, securing the door with a padlock. School was no escape. I was bullied relentlessly for my torn clothes and the musty odor that clung to me. Kids would wrinkle their noses and call me names, pushing me around and refusing to sit near me in the classroom. I felt invisible, like I didn't belong anywhere, except in that dark closet. Over time, the shadow became my constant companion. I'd wait for it, knowing that as soon as the closet door shut, it would be there. We'd talk for hours, the shadow telling me stories of far-off places and adventures. It listened to my fears, my dreams, and even my anger. It was the only one who seemed to care, who understood my pain. Now, as a grown man, those memories still haunt me. The shadow, my mysterious friend, saved me from the crushing loneliness of my childhood. But who or what was it really? And why did it choose me? This is just the beginning of my story. The mystery of the shadow and its purpose in my life is something I've yet to fully unravel. But one thing is clear, it changed everything. As the years passed, my situation at home worsened. My mother's addiction spiraled out of control, and the visits from strange men became more frequent and disturbing. The authorities finally intervened when a concerned neighbor reported the noise and commotion that seemed to never cease in our apartment. I was taken away, removed from the only home I had ever known, and placed into the foster care system. My new home was a stark contrast to the chaos I left behind. The Carters, an older married couple, welcomed me with open arms. Their house was neat and orderly, a reflection of the stability and care they offered. They treated me kindly, giving me a room of my own, and a semblance of normalcy that I had never experienced before. But even in this new environment, the shadow followed me. It appeared at night, slipping through the walls of my bedroom like an old friend. At first, I was relieved to see it, the familiar presence a comfort amidst so many changes. But soon, its visits took on a different tone. The shadow seemed agitated, its whispers more urgent. One night, as I lay in bed, the shadow spoke to me with a gravity I had never heard before. "I need to tell you something," it said, its voice echoing in the quiet room. "I am not just a shadow. I was once like you, a boy with dreams and fears." I sat up, my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I was murdered," the shadow continued. "A family member took my life, and my death has never been solved. I am trapped in this form, unable to move on until justice is served. You are the only one who can hear me, and the only one who can help." The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. The shadow, my only friend in my darkest hours, was a restless spirit seeking justice. The weight of this knowledge was overwhelming, but I felt a strange sense of purpose. I had to help him, had to uncover the truth about his death. As the years went by, the shadow told me more and more about the details of his death. Now, a teenager, I was no longer the scared, helpless boy I once was. I had grown stronger, more resilient, shaped by my experiences. I began to investigate, digging into old records and asking questions about the shadow's past. The Carters, though puzzled by my sudden interest in the local history, supported my efforts, providing me with access to old newspapers and archives. Piece by piece, I started to put together the story of the shadow's life and untimely death. His name was Ethan, a boy who had lived in the same neighborhood decades ago. The details were sparse, but the more I uncovered, the clearer it became that his death had been violently erased from memory. Ethan's presence grew stronger, guiding me to hidden clues and forgotten secrets. He described the person responsible for his death, a relative who had covered up the crime and moved on without consequence. The more I learned, the more determined I became to bring this dark chapter to light. As I unraveled the mystery of Ethan's death, I felt a deeper connection to him. We were both victims of circumstances beyond our control, both haunted by shadows of our past. But together, we could seek the justice that had been denied for so long. This journey was far from over. The truth was still shrouded in darkness, but with Ethan by my side, I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The shadow, once a symbol of my fear, had become a beacon of hope, guiding me towards a resolution that would finally set us both free. As I grew older, the mystery of Ethan's death became an obsession I couldn't shake. The truth haunted me, whispering in the dark corners of my mind, urging me to dig deeper. Ethan's stepdad, a high-ranking police officer, was a respected figure in the community, a man whose authority and power made him nearly untouchable. But the more I uncovered, the more I realized that this man was at the center of a dark and twisted conspiracy. Ethan's mother, once a vibrant and loving woman, had spiraled into addiction after years of being controlled and manipulated by the stepdad. But their story took a darker turn when he discovered that she had been unfaithful to him. Enraged and driven by a need for revenge, he hatched a plan so insidious that it would destroy her life completely. One night, fueled by jealousy and betrayal, he decided to exact his revenge in the most horrific way possible. He murdered Ethan, the innocent boy who had seen too much, and framed his wife for the crime. He knew exactly how to do it. He was, after all, a man of the law. And in that moment, everything changed. The truth was buried, and the real criminal walked free. He manipulated the crime scene, planted evidence, and ensured that the investigation pointed directly at Ethan's mother. Her addiction made her the perfect scapegoat, and no one questioned the evidence that led to her conviction. It was a flawless plan, executed with chilling precision. The system was played, and an innocent woman took the fall. She was sentenced to life in prison, carrying the unbearable weight of believing she had somehow caused her son's death. Her life, once filled with promise, was now a never-ending nightmare. The real story, hidden beneath layers of deceit, cried out for justice. The stepdad, meanwhile, continued to rise in the ranks, his reputation untarnished, while Ethan's mother languished behind bars, a victim of his cruel and calculated plan. With Ethan's help, I began to uncover the truth. Ethan was sure that the more I dug into the past, the more it became clear that the evidence against his mother had been meticulously fabricated. I found old police records, hidden files, and testimonies from those who had known the family before everything fell apart. I knew that each piece of evidence was another step closer to exposing the real killer. The revelation that Ethan's stepdad, the very person sworn to protect and serve, was the one responsible for his death, and that it would send shockwaves through the community if they ever found out. But bringing him to justice will not be easy. His influence is far-reaching, and his power could easily silence those who try to cross him. I knew that I had to have the right amount of evidence. With the evidence in hand, I approached Ethan's mother's attorney, a man who had long suspected foul play, but had never been able to prove it. Together, we would work to build a case strong enough to challenge the web of lies that had been woven so many years ago. As the truth began to unravel, Ethan's presence grew fainter, his whispers softer, but there was a sense of peace in his fading voice. He knew that justice was finally within reach, that the man who had taken his life would not escape the consequences forever. The attorney had presented the evidence to the court, and the case had been reopened with a trial scheduled for the near future. But as Ethan's shadow slowly disappeared, I became aware of a new growing sense of responsibility. The truth had been uncovered, and justice was finally within reach. Yet, as I closed this chapter, I could feel something else, a connection to the past that extended beyond Ethan's story. There were others out there, their stories untold, their killers unpunished, and their voices seemed to be reaching out to me, growing louder as Ethan's voice faded. The shadows had guided me to the truth, but they were leading me to something greater. I wasn't just uncovering the past. I was giving the dead a chance to speak, to find the justice that had been stolen from them. As I stood on the brink of this new path, I realized that I had become something more, a ghost whisperer, at the beginning of a journey that would unravel not just the mysteries of the past, but the very purpose that had been waiting for me all along. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Sir Fables and stay tuned for more stories.